Okay, so this file is in Canvas. We're going to be doing puppet pinning and puppet pin rigging tonight. So I'm just setting up all my files real quick. I'm going to open up the file I created for this lesson. These are all in Canvas, and you can find them by looking at the names of the files right here. And this right here is a lot of layers. And it's a character I just made for this puppet rigging tutorial, and I labeled everything. Okay, so first I started in Illustrator and I broke out the character. And, like the head's its own layer, the mouth is its own layer, the eyes. You want as much flexibility as possible when you're working with a character. And this is the split apart. Like if I hide any of these, you'll see how multiple shapes make up different parts of the character. And we've covered that, talking about breaking down your characters. So I'm going to close this one. There we go. This is a more visual breakdown where I wanted a sleeve and some skin showing, so I made that all one layer. Now these would be more rounded off for better motion, but I just did it real quick so that you could see you'd have the thigh, you'd have the calf, you'd have the shoe, the hips, the torso. Break out as much as you can whenever possible to have full control of your character over time. And this was every layer condensed into the full character. So it's a lot less layers than it was before. And that's important. You want to try and combine layers whenever you can, because I used a lot of complex shapes to get there. So we'll start off with the simple squid tonight. I mean, the octopus. Each tentacle I have on its own layer. And this adjustment layer is there just because, I drew it too small. This was created in After Effects with shape layers. And if I solo this right here, you can see that's what the tentacle looks like. So none of them overlap. This way you've got full control. You don't have to worry about distorting your image as you're going through with it. So, I would just grab my puppet pins and put the pins wherever I want the bends to occur. Like about there. And then you move your playhead and you can click outside the bounding box to select multiple puppet pins, or you can select individual ones. And remember, if I click show mesh, see there's a little bit too much mesh in there. So I can try and lower the density of the mesh a little bit to try and prevent that from happening. We're getting a little bit less overlap there. And it's probably also the expansion. There we go. Let's try 2. Good. And then the density, I'll make it a little bit more dense again. Okay, that's good. And you just want to make sure that it is covering as much of your art as possible. So I'm going to solo that so I can see it a little bit easier. Make some changes. This one right off the bat is working better. There must have been something wrong with that artwork. But we can see the puppet pins are working properly. So I'm happy with that. And you can animate each part individually, At this point, is there any questions over this boneless puppet pinning technique? You pin down what you want to move, and you also pin down what you do not want to move. Everybody's good with that? Okay. So we're going to close the boneless puppet rig. And this should be the far more complex rig. Yes. Okay. So the Illustrator artwork I showed you, when you've got like a 3D character, where each of these is a bone. And I more or less put my pins where most of these bones are, because that's where the character is going to be moving. I did a combo of bones and, I did a combo of puppet pins and nulls. And I'm going to show you this. This is new. Don't forget, when you're using Illustrator artwork, you want to collapse transform it. Let me test this rig out real quick. What null do I have selected? So if I hit P for position, okay. This rig that we're going to be doing tonight is an example of inverse kinematics. And what that means is if I lift this foot up, let's try it from the ankle. The shin's going to go with it. What I did was I put puppet pins where you see each of these nulls. And you know what? I will bring in the character 1 second. That will be the fast way of showing this from the start. Much better. Okay, this is perfect. If I hit my toggle transparency, we can see it's a transparent arm. Perfect. Here is how this puppet rigging goes with puppet pins. The reason I'm showing you this, because we covered puppet rigging last week, but this one is with pins. And this is crucial when you're using things like photos instead of line art. So you need to know this technique as well. All right, so I'm going to set this up. I'm going to do nulls first. So you can get to your nulls by going layer, new, null, or you can right click here. And I'm only going to make 3. I'll do shoulder, elbow, and wrist. So I'm going to move this. I'm going to put it right where I want the wrist to move. I'm going to hit enter to name it. I double clicked by accident. Sorry about that. Okay, there's the first one. Put that right there. Hit enter to name it. It's not behaving tonight. Sorry about that. And then finally, put that one up there. Okay, great. I've got my nulls. I'm going to put a pin where each of these top left corners is. But here's the important part. I have to have the artwork selected, not the nulls. Because remember, the puppet pins will deform this art layer. And before I go doing that, I'm going to set the anchor point for it. If I hold down Command and double click, there it is right there. But I'm going to set it up here to where the shoulder moves. Okay, so I've got my nulls. I've got my art layer selected. Now I'm going to put my pins at the top corner where each of those nulls is. Like that. So when I twirl down my mesh in my deform, now I've got the names of my pins. And when I select each one, it highlights. So this is my wrist. I'm going to twirl open each of those pins, and we've got a position. I'm going to add in an expression and parent it to one of the nulls. So they're right here. Let me raise this up a little bit. And here is the expression. So I'm going to option click on the pin, let's say for the wrist. I'll paste this in, and whatever we named the null for that. So if we name that null wrist, I change this section here. So it's going to be this part right here. So I'll demonstrate. I'm going to copy that. Remember, you got to have all your line breaks. So for the shoulder, I'll hold down Alt or Option while I click here, paste in my expression. So this null for shoulder it's going to autocomplete. So I double click. I've got my white arrow. I can click out of it. Now for the elbow, I hold down Alt or Option, paste my expression in, go here, start typing in, allow it to autocomplete, go. And last time, hold down Alt or Option. Was that the wrist? Okay, that's the wrist. Okay, so each one of these is parented to one of those. Now let's test this out. If I move the null, the artwork moves with it. Everybody see that? Like such. The reason this is helpful is because it's going to help keep the proportions of the artwork. So it's going to try and keep them a little bit closer together. Now I'm going to try and rotate this. Okay, that's not going to work just yet, but I could make it look like rotate by moving like that. Okay, and I think I remember the step I left out, and I'm going to fix that right now. No one called me out on it. I've got my puppet pins, and I parented the expressions, but I did not parent the nulls. So if I parent the elbow to the shoulder and the wrist to the elbow, now let's see what happens. This is probably the step I did not do last time. If I do this and I bring it up, it's starting to move its way up the body. Good. Now let's try P for position. The hand is now moving with the elbow, which is what we want. And shoulder, I can rotate the shoulder and the whole arm moves with it now. Now let's try the elbow. See if that fixed that. Yep, now I can rotate the elbow as well because of these parented nulls. Wrist will not move the hand just yet, but I can at least use these two to drive the rest of the rig. So it was putting down our nulls and naming them, putting puppet pins to line up where the null corners were, using the expression I showed you, changing this to whatever the name of the null you're parenting it to, then parenting the nulls together to get this type of a rig. Don't go changing your mesh after you parent it. That's the lesson from that. I'm going to close that. I'm going to close this. So I did this for this whole character. I've got one at the tippy toes, one at the ball of the foot, one by the heel over here, one by the ankle. These are all the points of motion. I've got the knee, the hip, the middle of the hip, the hand, the elbow, the shoulder. I've got the middle of the chest, the mid of the chest, the bottom middle of the chest, where the shoulders meet, and the head. So that's how I put all my pins there to get that type of rig. And then I rigged my nulls together. So it's the same thing I just showed you, but a lot more complicated. And all those pins are on the artwork layers here. So I'm going to show you a couple images real quick. When you're working with your character, you're going to want a front facing, 3/4, a side, a back 3/4, and a back. Like, these give you some options. Even if you don't fully rotate your character around, you can make some cheats real quick with this type of a workflow. So when you build a character, you want these different views. Is an example of keeping your character in its proper proportions as you're rotating it. Like, you would line up the main elements, like the bottom of the eyes and the nose. So you would have lines and you would just follow that. And that's how you can keep your character looking correct as you rotate. You know, like top of the shoulders, whatever points are important. You set guidelines for it. And when you're faking dialogue, these are called visemes. And you'll have one for each sound. Like, here's a front view, and there's a side view of the visemes, and it's showing you what the different consonants sound like. And you can find visemes online and use them for reference to get your own dialogue happening. But it's always good to look up reference so that you've got something to work off of, or your mouth shapes if you're doing any, like I said, lip syncing. That is the end of character rigging. Is there any questions on character rigging? I'm going to show you a cheat for a fast walk cycle. So I'll use a rounded rectangle. I'll just use a regular rectangle. This is not going to be, super accurate. It's just a quick little thing to work off of. So I'm going to make my arms different colors. Everything on the left will be red. This will be one arm. I'll put this up at the top. Okay. This will be the shoulder. Line it up there. Okay. Let me name it. I'll call this right. I'm going to duplicate it. Command D. Move it down to about, say about there. And I'm not worrying about how these things line up because this is just to demonstrate right forearm like that. Okay, that's good enough for tonight. And I'm going to make this a lighter color just so we can watch it move. Perfect. I'm going to parent the forearm to the shoulder. We'll parent the shoulder to the torso. I'm going to duplicate these, Command D, put them below the torso on the other side, and I'll make them left. And I'm going to make them blue just so we can see what color they are. Okay, so my left shoulder is parented to the torso. The left forearm is parented to the left shoulder. That's good. All right, so now I'm going to select all these and duplicate them. I'll put them at the top. And I'll rename them. They'll be my legs. I'll just put them right there. So forearm will be calf. And they're still color coded, so I know what is my right and what's my left. This will be thigh. This will be calf. And this will be thigh. So the thighs will be parented to the torso. The calves will be parented to the thighs. Okay. And I'm going to put my left side below the torso. Any questions on this quick character rig? Okay, so I'm going to start with my arms. Shoulder. R for rotate. And in this 1 second, I'm working at, let's see, is this 24 frames? Okay. So I'm going to work off of 24 frames, and the middle of 24 frames is 12 frames. Okay. So I'm going to swing my front arm up. Let's just say here. I'm going to copy that and have it here. So it's in the front. And then right here, I'll have it go backwards about the same amount. So it's going like that, then going forward. So it's a loop. Any questions on that motion so far? Okay. While my right shoulder is forward, my left shoulder will be backwards. Same amount. I'm going to go here, line that up. So now it's going to be forward. And then I copy this first keyframe. So it's a loop. Paste it there. Like that. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same thing for thighs. I'm going to hit R. You know what? I need to get my keyframes there. That's the shoulder. All right. So if my right leg is forward, it's going to be backward. I mean, my right arm forward, it's going to be opposites. This arm forward, that arm back. That's the way we're going to be working. And then I copy this. So I've got a loop. So it's just going forward, back, forward, like that. And already you can see what's happening here. I'm going to hide that and go to my left thigh, hit R for rotate, go back to the beginning. If this one is back, the other one's got to be forward. That's the way you walk. So I'm going to copy that so I have it. Go here, go in the opposite motion. Then go there for the end of my loop, paste it. Like that. There's a quick and easy walk cycle. Can everyone see how we got that? Okay, that's a good question. Now, look at it this way. This is why I color coded it. This is why I want. I want to hear questions. I want to hear people talking. This is the arm closest to the camera. That's furthest to the camera. Okay, so blue is far, red is close. Okay, these are always going to be in opposite motion, just like the legs are always going to be in opposite motion. Not only that, when this arm is forward, that leg on that side of the body is back. That's why I can't copy and paste. 1 second. So that's why I can't copy and paste those keyframes, because these are always moving in opposite directions, and the arm and the leg are always moving in opposite directions as well. Does that make sense? And you'll notice I put my torso body, the anchor point, at the bottom. I'm going to put a head on here just to make it a little bit more interesting and drive this point home. So make the head a little bit like an oval. I'm going to hold down Command or Control when I double click on the anchor point. Put it to the middle so I can get it to the bottom more easily. Okay, and I just named it. Now the head, I'm going to parent to the torso. And here's what's going to happen. Right here, all right, so I'm going to hit S for scale. I'm going to non-uniformly scale it. So right here, there's going to be a little bit of a dip down. So I'm going to scale down slightly. Just a little bit. And on the ups, there'll be a little bit of a rise in the character. So actually, I got to keyframe that. So 101. Down. And then as they pass through, so now see how it looks like there's a little bit of a bob, that little bit of squash and stretch. It's not really true squash and stretch, but I'm stretching down on the first step down. And then as they step up, I'm stretching up a little bit. Next, I'm going to grab all my keyframes and easy ease those by right clicking and choosing easy ease. And now we're going to add a little bit of follow through and overlapping action. So what I'll do is I'll keep one layer open and the other ones I'll hide the keyframes for just so I can see what's happening here. So what I can do is there's my shoulder, here's my forearm. I can bend that forearm up a little bit. Then have it go to almost all the way back. Copy this. First keyframe, go here to paste it into a loop. Easy ease that. See how that adds a little bit more life? I could also offset it a little bit as well. Like that. I could even make it more extreme if I wanted to give it more motion and life. So if I copy that, paste it there, just like that. Now I can do the same for the arm in the back. I'm going to have this one swing forward here and here. I'm going to just move it a little bit, copy and paste that. Easy ease these. And I could also do the same for the knees. I mean the calves. Have those swing as the character walks to add more life to it. But that's a quick and easy walk cycle. Any questions on that? Like I said again, I do the same thing with the knees as I did, the calves as I did there. With the arms, Okay, well, it still needs a lot of work, but I'm just showing you, really it's forward, back, and then, in the middle, the opposite, and then you just copy your first frames. So that you're just looping it back and forth. So if I go to my thighs, that's back. Then the middle is forward. And then again, you just copy your first one. So it's forward, back, forward. Then I'd copy this first one. Easy ease them. Like that. Then do the same for the other leg. And then if you had hands, the hands would swing a little bit after the forearms to add a little bit of that forward follow through and overlapping action. Same thing with the feet. So a little bit of squash on the down and then stretch up on the walkthroughs. So the middle is down, then the two beside it are ups. So we're done with rigging and looking at, different principles of motion put into it and parenting to get the rig working. And we also quickly learned about puppet pinning the arm and using the nulls and parenting the nulls together and the pins to the nulls to get that type of a rig using photos. I've got my art select. I'm going to put my pins, line them up there with the nulls, and then name them. We got that going on good. Now, I'm going to try and add some starch pins in here as well. So I'm going to grab my expression and I'll see if the starch pins will prevent bending in between these. So I'm going to hold down Alt or Option, click here. I rename this part, double click to autocomplete. Hold down Alt or Option again, paste. Rename this part again to match the null I want to parent it to. Double click to complete. Click out when I've got the white arrow so I don't add any extra spaces. One more time, hold down Alt or Option, paste the expression, rename that null to whatever it's being parented to. Double click to autocomplete. I've got the white arrow. I can click out of my expression field. At this point, it should work. I'm going to parent the wrist to the elbow to the shoulder. I'm going to select my artwork. And now I'm going to try and add starch pins after I test this. So if I R for rotate, it's working. Okay. I'm going to go back to my artwork. I'm going to try and add a starch pin and see what happens. Now add one in between here. Now let's see what happens to our rig if it still works. Okay, good. There's a lot less bending. So I can go back to my art, another starch pin. We'll put one on each side just to keep it more rigid. This would be where the bones are. This is like a bones type of workflow. Now it's barely bending anymore in between the joins. That's what you want to make it look like it's got bones. And it's more or less keeping the size consistent for the character. So I could rotate this, bring it up a little bit, add some follow through and overlapping action with the elbow, rotate up a little bit more, then finally do position for the wrist. A little bit of follow through and overlapping action there. Just like that. So you can make your character whatever you want. If you're better in Photoshop or with photos and photorealism, you can use the Puppet Pin rig. Otherwise, you could use shape layers and, add texture, add gradients, whatever you want, but it's more or less the same thing. Just make sure your whole rig is connected together so that things don't fall apart as you're moving them around. Does anyone have anything this week for me to look at in lab? Okay, just watch you don't fall too far behind because we're nearing the end of the semester. And I know everyone's got other things to be working on with their other classes, but I've said from day one, manage your time, do little by little each week, or else you're really going to put yourself under a lot of pressure trying to get your whole final animation done at the last minute. And that's never a good spot to be in. And also, I could add helpful insight and help troubleshoot along the way. So please try and get little by little done. And hopefully Thursday I'll have some more stuff to see from people. So just remember to add that rigidity, the rigidness between the bends, I use the Puppet Starch Pin tool. Scale wipe. So watch this. This will be driving the effect. We say by how much. So right away you see it's going into the bounding box. So I'm going to delete the effect and pre-compose my type. Move all attributes. Now throw it on here. and it's going to the edge of the screen because we got rid of the bounding box. You understand? You saw this, okay? And then as you move the center, that's going to affect the scale. So we could also change the angle. So it's going straight up and down. Now when I change the amount, I'll go right off the screen. Or I could move this up and down to do that. See, like that. Either or works. I could set an amount and then move the center, or I could just keep moving the center until that goes away, but that's a bit too much. So, okay, well, make sure you back up everything to Google Drive so that you don't lose your work because you always have a duplicate there. Do you understand? Okay. Hmm. Did you try a different cord or putting it into a different port on your computer? Oh, okay. Hmm. I would try going to the computer lab at school or a campus nearby and see what happens when you plug it in. If it reads it there, it doesn't hurt to try like putting it into another machine, see what happens. No problem. All right, let me try and do something interesting with this type. Nothing selected. Good. Here, there, there, and then I'll line this up in a second. So I'm going to get rid of my fill. Add a stroke. I'm going to make it a color that I can see that is different from the letter it's going over. I'll do red, nice and bold. But want this to be at the center of the letter. Just like that. As thick as the letter is going to be. Good. Now I can start fixing the path points. Good. Zoom in a bit. Get this perfect. So pretend this is the exact same width as that L. Oh, okay. I'll add my trim path. So what some people do is they use a trim path to bring the letter on. We will go forward in time. Okay, so it's coming down the screen. And as it's coming down the screen and filling in the letter, they animate the end of it off. It's a bit too fast. And I'll make this the color of the type now. Once it's fully covering the letter, I can trim the start of this path. So you'll get the idea what that looks like. Revealing the letter and having it animate on. That sets up a leading line that brings you into your animation. like such. And you could do, hmm, I changed it to white so that you could see the text was white. See what I mean? Like you would do this letter by letter, and the A, you do the same thing with diagonal lines and have that draw on. Like that's just one way of doing it. You just figure out how these are coming in, what order and what direction. You could use curves, whatever you want. But this is, you've seen this technique a lot, you know. I'm just showing you with the letter L here. You do it letter by letter in each part you're bringing in. That's one thing you can do with type. Don't forget texture always adds some cinematic quality to it. So I'm going to grab some video. I'm going to grab this video from Canvas and I'm going to motion track this. We'll be covering motion tracking soon. I think it's right click. Let me double check. I'll show you. So it opens up the motion tracker. I'm going to track the motion, which we got here. Here's the video clip. I'm going to track the position and I'm going to analyze it forward through the clip. And then we lost our track point because it went past the screen. So what we're going to do, add a null. Sorry. See if this works real quick. I'm going to put it right about there. Then I'm going to try and apply this to the null, the scene. X and Y, sure. The track fails once. That goes off the screen. I'll get rid of all these. So I didn't stop it in time. I'm going to 3D enable this. Scale down a little bit. Once I do this, and if I get it working, you're going to say, oh yeah, I've seen that a million times. Try and line it up a bit. Now I'm going to parent this to the null. And you can see once the motion track kicks in from where I started it, it moves with the scene now, keeps the perspective. It's got to fix that rotation a little bit better. However, I want it, make it sit in the scene a little bit better. Right about there. Just like that. That's motion tracking. So it worked for this scene because it's very, perspective driven. And I was able to tie the type to the moving camera that filmed this. We'll be covering motion tracking coming up in greater detail, obviously. And once that null leaves the screen, the type should follow it. I got that same clip, and I'm using the type as an alpha mat. Let's try something different this time. I'm going to duplicate the clip. I'm going to pre-compose this. I'm going to put it above. And this I'm going to make grayscale. I'm going to try using a displacement map, because now I've got a grayscale value for the type. There's our grayscale type. I can even hide it. Now if I go here, put a displacement map on it, choose that, effects and mask. Now you can see it distorting the video as it passes through it. If I turn this on, using a blending mode for it, we can see inside it the displacement, the video below it. Add a little interest. And I tried a layer style just to make it a little bit more legible, but there's other solutions you could do. I'm using a blending mode plus a displacement map. Add a little bit of interest there as it's going over the clip. And don't forget this trick. It's an oldie but a goodie, especially when you do it right and you do it tastefully. Right here, the art is fully covered by the robot arm. Put this below everything. And now it's magically revealed as the arm passes. I trimmed where the layer starts, and I wait until it's fully covered by the art. There you have it. Instant interest. This is moving, it's drawing the eye there, and it's also being used to reveal the type. Any questions on how I use this to push the idea a little bit further? So once something is fully covered and the object passes by, you could use it as a reveal as well, because we already have that motion. And based upon how you draw your artwork, that is how severe or subtle you can move your artwork before it starts breaking. I did not round these edges properly. As you can see, I did that on purpose. And the character rig is breaking quicker as I rotate the artwork. I'm just going to experiment with some noise. I've got some time. I'm going to add my time expression into the evolution stopwatch. Use it as a displacement map just to see what type of effect I get. It's turbulent noise. You could use either, really. They just give you different looks. They each have their own geometry. But don't forget, anything with grayscale values can be a displacement map. See, I'm just messing around with type, trying to get a little bit more creative, a little bit fancier look. See what happens if we add a little bit of glass to it. I'm going to use adjustment layer and put it on there. And I'll use the map to drive it. Now I've got a more dreamy, ethereal look. A little bit more of a liquid look. And this is all just messing around just with concepts I showed you to try and get, something unique. And then right here, once it starts to come together, go here, go forward a little bit, and zero it all out. Get rid of that effect. So we just have the displacement map driving it now. Like a little bit of extra life inside that still text. That little bit of subtlety I keep talking about once something's at its resting position. See? And then what I can do, now I've got this idea working, I'm going to add a black solid. grab this video clip. So we've got this happening. 1 second. This is about where our logo starts to, we drop down a resolution. Here we go. We got it up for a moment. We'll leave it up for a little bit of legibility. And then I'm going to slide this clip over. And I'm going to use this as an alpha inverted. So it's like a cookie cutter. It's going to be that into that. This clip behind it. And we'll do a fly through with this. If I go S for scale, go forward a little bit, scale it up. Oops. Nope. I'm going to want it in the center. So I'm going to hold down Command, double click on my pan behind. And if there was something there, I could tie into this image right here. We're seeing the video clip behind it, which instantly makes it far more interesting because we got all this color detail happening now. Do I mean? And we fly into it, but we need a connector here, the graphic element. What I'm going to do, shape layer there. Normally I'd have different type, but copy that displacement map. I'm going to pre-compose these together. Now the fly through should work. Why is that not? Oh, I see what's going on. Oh, okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to parent this to that. So as that scales up, that scales up with it. That's what it was. It was a parenting issue. Now we've got to fly. It's got to plan it better, have better shapes and type. And what we can do is we're flying through, we can scale up the video. So I'm going to, oops. From about here to here. So to make it look like it's flying into it, I'm going to make this a little bit less than 100%. So the video scales up as it's going through it, like that. Little subtlety there. Now let's see how that looks. Subtle little ways to push your ideas. So a recap of that, I had our type and I used a noise map and I used that for displacement. Then to push it even further, I put the glass effect on it to get more dimensionality to that displacement. Then we use that as an alpha matte to fly through into the video, and we use the video to color the type to push it even further. So that's just showing how you can tie several techniques together to get something more interesting. Again, this is stuff we've been going over for like 12 weeks. I'm just now showing you ways where you can use these techniques to push simple things like type and displacement a little bit further. Hopefully, you found that little bit of lab time inspiring and interesting and informative. All right. Well, I'll be ending it here since no one has anything to show me. And reach out to me if you have any questions. Thursday, I will be back on campus. So if anyone's able to make it in Thursday, I will be there. And until then, keep in touch and send me any ideas you have. Hopefully, we'll be able to push some people's ideas Thursday. So have a great night, and I will see you all then.